prior subject, poultry house discussion. Last time we discussed it at great length tonight. I would like to see, this is coming from me personally, I would like to see this board kind of try to keep this as simple as we possibly can and try to make enough decisions tonight as we can so that we can make maybe finalize a decision at the next meeting. I don't want to see this beat out for the next 6 months. We've already been in the middle of it for 4 or 5 months now. And we really haven't gotten very far. If people want to know something, we'll probably make half of them mad, the other half glad, whichever. But judging from our meeting last time, I hope you realize this is a very conscientious group. And we're trying to do the best we can, taking everything into consideration. So with that, we'll move on. We do have 2 people tonight that are representing the county. We have Mr. Mike McIntyre with the Health Department if we have a question for him. And we have our attorney here, Mr. Jim Moore. Mr. Zoning Director, would you like to say a few words to get started here?
Well, what we tried to do, we sent out in your packets, we tried to summarize what we felt some of the issues were, and we put that in a table here. You may come up with different issues that we didn't think of, but we tried to get something on paper to get you started discussing this. And those related to location of poultry houses, setbacks, density, lot size, buffer, site design, moratorium, the health ordinance that was brought up, the right to farm ordinance was discussed a little bit, property values, and then kind of a catch-all other. And what we tried to do along the top of the table, under Somerset zoning is kind of what our code says now. The input provided by DPI, the input provided by local people who spoke at, this started back in November. Although there hasn't been public input, at least oral public input for the last meeting or two. There has been written comment submitted to you, and there was oral comment in November, December, and January, I believe. And then we've kind of had another catch-all column of the other, which is just some thoughts that we put together for you to discuss. Actually, some of those thoughts came from you all at the last couple of meetings, just so we could put everything on paper, so hopefully you had a chance to look it over. So it's fresh in your minds a little bit, and we can take it from there. We did include, the table that we did some meetings ago, because we do reference this table in the first table, and of course this table is what other counties do in their zoning ordinances. Just to give you some more background information, Audrey Cornelius in our office did prepare a couple of maps. One shows the zoning code, or the zoning map, and where some recent poultry houses have been built, and where some are proposed. And that the one over here is the same map, it just shows it on an aerial photo, just as a point of reference for you. And Jim Porter has submitted some things that we forwarded to you, and I guess, and you did get some emails from Maria Hyen in the last day or two. I sent that to you. So I guess that's all I have at this point, unless you have some questions.
These houses on that map, this map that you've given us, they are currently under construction. Now, you have a list over here that we have 2 lists here, poultry houses under construction and poultry houses planned.
Yes, the yellow ones on the one table are the ones that are planned, that haven't actually broken ground or done anything like that. The ones in the red,
they are final.
they're in the works. But they may not have final stormwater management approval, so they're somewhere in the process.
But the ones under construction have everything fine.
Yes, plans approved, yes. Is that right, Kim? Make sure I have that right.
All right, we will proceed. I'll open it up for discussion. If you want to, how do you want to do this, and then I have any suggestions on how you want to do it. First thing we have is on this location. Comment, questions, considerations, or forget about it. Now, it is also my understanding, and that's one reason we have the attorney here, that in the January minutes, we were told that the only thing that this board can do, commission can do, is setbacks and buffers. Is that correct, Mr. Attorney?
Well, you can do, you're still advising. Any decision that you make will still be approved as far as your zoning ordinance is concerned by the county commissioners if we're advising them. Yes, sir. Am I answering your question? Okay.
I'm not clear on answering your question now.
Okay.
I hope everybody else.
What you have asked is setbacks and buffers and things of that nature. You can come up with a figure that you are comfortable with in this planning and zoning commission. Those recommendations would be sent to the county commissioners in reference to whatever project you're reviewing, but they would be the ones who would change any zoning ordinance and recommendation to change to those setbacks or buffer requirements that you review.
But if we can only, make recommendations or whatever on, setbacks and buffers, what you're saying is that, like, density, that's not something we can deal with.
You can make a recommendation, again, on density, and that recommendation would be followed by the county commissioners, who then may change the ordinance to reflect your recommendations on density, buffers, and setbacks.
So each of these things then that we have listed here, we could make a recommendation to.
Yeah, I
each
think,
of these
I think
categories.
there's probably something in each of these that could be incorporated into the zoning ordinance in some form or another. I mean, not the moratorium and not the right to farm ordinance, but they're not property values, they're kind of byproducts. Yeah, the other things.
Health ordinance. How about the health?
The health ordinance that was provided to you does have a lot of things in there regarding setbacks and things like that. So, I mean, those sort of things, you can
So
certainly
it's
address.
indirect.
Yeah. And just to be clear for everybody that's here, the county commissioners told the planning commission to review this at this stage and come back to the county commissioners with what they were thinking of doing. The county commissioners at that point will provide more direct direction, more specific direction to the planning commission as far as how they want them to go. So if anything, if this goes any further, there will be additional public hearings in the future where you'll have several opportunities to speak.
All right, we want to look at the first one, take them in order, probably the simplest thing. Okay.
Before we start this, can I ask Mr. McIntyre a couple questions?
Sure, that's what he's here for.
You want to go there?
Yeah, come on.
The number one concern I get, and you get a lot of phone calls, is about drinking water, groundwater wells. It's my understanding that the setbacks that we look at here are gonna do very little, if anything, with the groundwater issue, the way I understand it. That they're gonna be permitted by MDE for the wells. The neighbors, the adjoining property owners get questionnaires. The adjoining property owners send comments to MDE. MDE approves the well. Whether they have 1,000-foot setback or a 200-foot setback isn't gonna affect whether that well pulls water away from their house or not. Is that a correct assumption?
Probably, yes. I mean, they're not gonna, at some point, MDE will start looking at drawdown of the aquifer. But from experience, the aquifer, they let the aquifer get drawn down way beyond anything that we've seen here so far, before they would start restricting use because of drawdown.
Well, it's, the number one complaint I get is about how much these neighbors get these well permits that are a million and some gallons for these large poultry houses, and they're gonna pull water away from me. I said, if you got a 4-inch well with a submersible pump, you've got no problem.
Probably, I mean, it is cumulative. I mean, if you start drawing 1 million gallons, you will create a cone of depression around that well. And the aquifer will drop like that, away from the well. Same thing happened, I mean, it happened right here in the county, when the ECI cranked up. Most everybody within a 10-mile radius got a brand new 4-inch well, because 2-inch well could no longer get the water. It didn't run the well dry, and you just couldn't get the water with a suction line.
But that cone of depression is gonna go well out beyond any setbacks we set for poultry.
I would suspect, I mean, I don't have any, and it's on an individual basis, I don't know. You can't say if you draw X number of gallons, you're gonna have this much drawdown 300 feet away. I don't know that anybody could come up with that figure, but you will have a cone of depression around any high volume well.
If the difference is looking at between an average 10-week cycle for poultry houses, where you have from 0 use per day up to their maximum and back down, it's averaged out. Does that have any, that would be a little bit different than ECI, which is pretty much the same amount on a daily basis?
I would think it'd be a little different. I mean, you should get some recovery during the downtime. But again, I mean, cumulative, if you just do it year after year, it's just not going to really come back because you rested in 3 weeks or whatever.
Have you seen this be a problem from a poultry complex?
Not from poultry, no.
What is, he's using the term, I don't know whether he's using it loosely or accurately, 1 million gallons.
I've never seen an application that's anywhere near that.
Yeah, I'm just gonna calculate for you, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna base it off.
I mean, most of what we see is just a little above 10,000 gallons per day that requires you to get a groundwater appropriation from that.
Next something we're exploring or looking at is the increase in the numbers of increased numbers and sizes of the poultry houses. So, I don't know how that would affect the drawdown. I mean, you're basing your information on the current number of poultry houses that we've had, but there seems to be, those are increasing pretty rapidly. Do you have any concern through the environmental aspect of it in the drought?
I would say if that's where you probably come into a density thing.
Yeah.
I mean, if you cluster a bunch of these really large poultry operations in a small area, then I would maybe have some concern that you're gonna have some substantial drawdown of the aquifer.
Yeah, I mean, it depends probably upon, where they are in their level of development. I mean, a larger chicken is gonna take more water, or, it's gonna take more to produce it than the smaller ones. I mean, and there's no way to really plan that, is there? I mean, so
I
your
don't think you could
drawdown.
schedule that. I mean, it's, kind of integrated.
It would change every year. It would
Yeah.
be different every single year.
Yeah.
You might see 3 farms moving out in the same week, and you might see, 1 a week for a while, so it just,
I mean, it would average out, I think, regardless of the sequence and timing and things like that.
For
You
the
would
size
get
of the
some-
chicken house, but for the really capos, they're gonna draw down a lot more water, or they're gonna produce more drawdown.
Well, the more water you use, the more drawdown you're gonna get. That's
So the way these, I guess, I shouldn't say unfortunate, but there is a tremendous, and Gary, well as I do, I've been around long enough.
not much.
The issue that we're dealing with is already here.
Right.
I mean, when you take West Post Office Road and Palmetto Church Road, and then you go over on College Backland Road, this is here. When you look, and I said last time, most of the ones in progress won't bother everybody. Somebody said, well, how do you know? I said, well, I've been to a lot of these sites to look at them, so I know something. But when you look at the map, the way they're spread out, basically, once you get away from the complex that's already there, they're spread out enough, so they really shouldn't be a major concern for this issue. Should they or should they not?
The way they're spread out there, is that existing, is that what that is?
That's the new ones.
New one?
That's the new ones.
How many houses does that represent?
Does it
Each one of those
represent
circles represent?
38 or 67?
About 67.
67.
And when you said a bunch, is it 2 of these big chicken houses or 7 or what constitutes a
We're
bunch?
seeing, I think, well, Gary knows probably more about what the average number of houses are, and it really, I guess it depends on, too, it's the number of birds, really. I mean, the house
Right.
size can change. You can have 6 houses that would house the same number of birds that maybe 8 houses would, or 4 houses would, depending on how big your
So you're talking about actually number of individual
No, I mean,
population.
Right, I mean, the bottom line is how many birds are you raising.
Back to my original question, I don't know if you answered, I missed it. The way these were spread out in the compost, do you see that presenting a problem on drawdown?
I wouldn't think, you know, as a whole, no, I wouldn't think so. I mean, there is gonna be some kind of depression around each operation, but I wouldn't think that even 6 or 8 houses
As
I
far
mean,
as you
10,000
know-
gallons a day, say, operations drawing 10,000 gallons a day, sounds like a lot of water, but in the broad scheme of things, it's really not.
I put in a well, you made me run that much in the ditch.
More than that. 2 weeks.
So, I mean, 10,000 gallons a day is not a big issue for drawdown. 500,000 gallons a day, like when the prison cranked up, that's a big deal.
Now, in your experience, is the complex, I'll call it, for want of a better term, out on West Post Office and Palmetto Church Road, has that presented a drawdown problem to anywhere around there that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of. Like Kevin said, anybody has a 4-inch well shouldn't have an issue, even if the aquifer dropped some, because you can drop the well, you know, farther down in the well. I mean, the pump farther down in the well. But I haven't heard of anybody having to do that. I mean, the issue came about, and I think most, well, the state doesn't even allow too much wells anymore, so anybody drilling new wells has to go 4 inch. There was a big issue, like I said, when ECI cranked up, there was huge kind of depression.
What was issued 4 or 5 years ago with the side pump, or maybe on the side pump, I don't know what story.
The official from the NDE, official word from NDE, that was a phenomenon. But we sort of had it GPS in that, but the dominoes that kind of knew what was going on. And that caused a whole lot of people in the northern end of the county to have to switch either to a deep well backer system or build a 4-inch well.
Like, we had more than one aquifer, obviously.
Well, the main aquifer in use around here is the Minoka.
Minoka, but we've got Patapsco, we've got Potomac, we've got Allegheny, we've got Garrett. What about staggering the depths of the wells? With that,
Well, those, I don't use his name, I'm familiar with the Magavie, the Minokan, and then the eastern side of the county, Pocono.
we've got the Potomac and the Patapsco here too, but they're down well over 1,000 to 1,500
Right,
feet.
and then mostly, I think from USGS stuff, that's over in the west side of the county, Smith
It-
Island, Chrisfield.
It depends.
I think if you get farther east, I think you get into saltwater intrusion in those aquifers.
You can. I'm just curious about, instead of drawing out of one aquifer, if they were required to draw out of a different aquifer.
Well, I suppose you could, but.
Now, that's
if
another
you-
business
Yeah, I
expense.
mean, if you compare drilling a 200-foot well or a 180-foot well to a 1,200-foot well. I mean, that's.
But again, that's
huge-
cost of doing business.
Well, it could be.
I mean, that's
Yeah, I
that's
mean,
why I'm wondering what, drawing from a different aquifer than the adjoining aquifer,
Right.
the one that residences would be in, would be an
I
option.
think the next aquifer down is a chop tank, and that's super high chlorides.
Yeah.
Yeah, water quality and gallons per minute are gonna end up being, water quality is probably the biggest issue.
I mean, the magnitude, the one that Chrisfield uses is, other than total dissolved solids, which really doesn't cause a problem, really. It's super good quality water, and a lot of it, but I don't know that you can get it farther east in the county without having high chlorides.
Okay,
What quality water do you need for chicken houses? Do you need the same quality water for the chicken houses that you need for a resident?
Yep.
I would say you do.
We gotta eat the chicken.
Right.
You have to take it later on.
And that's MDE, not us, so.
While we're discussing water quality, I know this issue has come up. The effects of poultry houses as far as contaminating wells and aquifers and so forth from the poultry industry and agriculture in general. Have you seen any of that in the county? I know you test a lot of wells every year, and could you give us a rundown on that? And I'm sure the subject will come up sooner or later, so I'll bring it up while you're sitting there.
No, we haven't actually. I mean, nearly every well potable supply in Somerset is in a confined aquifer. Most of the time, Minoan, sometimes Pocono. And there haven't been any wells in the last 5 years. And historically, I don't recall any that failed bacteriological testing or nitrate testing that were drilled into a confined aquifer. Remember historically maybe having a well driller maybe 3 or 4 times when the well just wouldn't clear up because they didn't run enough water in the ditch like you did maybe, or it just wouldn't clear up, that they had to go ahead and re-drill. But that was bacteria that was introduced in the drilling process. There's never been that I can recall.
So you don't think that is a major concern, that the fact that poultry houses here, that they're going to contaminate the drinking water?
In Somerset County, where we use confined aquifers, I don't think it's going to be an issue if the well's constructed properly. A superficial aquifer, which we don't use, I wouldn't try to say that there's not some increased nitrates.
What aquifer that we don't use?
Well, the superficial,
Oh, it's
it's
consolidated.
the unconsolidated superficial aquifer, but we don't use that in this county for drinking water.
What about air quality? Do you do any testing of air quality in regard to poultry houses?
No, we don't. There's an air quality division with MDE. A lot of issues that are being talked about really would be the Maryland Department of Environment. And like I said, last 5 years, every potable water supply well that has been tested has passed and issued the certificate of potability.
How many wells do you test a year? I saw that number and I was amazed that you tested that many.
We issue usually around 100 permits a year, and not all those are potable supply.